the right job. And I said there was a subpoint 8. So I have an 8 with single parens around it. And that's the last point. Subpoint 8. Note that, quote, right job, end quote, does not imply that the man is in one position or one job for all of his life. Period. His right job is the job or occupation that divinely provides him the most satisfaction and fulfillment at his point in maturity. That job may include growth. Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. I skipped a sentence. Scratch that. We'll get there in a second. So, most satisfaction, fulfillment is point of maturity. Continue the point. As he matures, comma, gains more understanding, and consequently has greater capacity, comma, God will fulfill that capacity and in turn will provide the right job to provide maximum happiness, period. That job may include growth in the same profession, or it may mean a change of profession. Period. Therefore, the man must continue to be aware of God's blessings and aware of the growth potential. See, sometimes the knowledge and capabilities that you have are nothing more than the toolbox, and exactly where you apply that toolbox is where you're going to have maximum happiness. So you may have skills in leadership, for example, and whether you're in leadership in an engineering organization, or leadership in a construction company, or leadership in something else, you may end up moving around a little bit, for example, to have different experiences and have a greater fulfillment. and not just stay in a particular industry, for example, but you're still using the skills that have been provided to you by God and the capabilities that have been provided to you by God. Other times, you may actually grow to the point of maturity where you recognize a spiritual gift that you hadn't recognized before. And in order to exercise that spiritual gift, you end up changing jobs or changing professions. For example, you may actually be working in a regular quote-unquote job and suddenly realize that, you know what, after I've been studying and been praying, I've realized I have the gift of evangelism. And so then your job turns to being an evangelist. And now you're not, now you're not stuck in any one particular job. You're actually an evangelist. That's the job that, God has provided for you. Okay. And you have to change what you're doing so that you can fulfill that capability and take advantage of the new opportunities that God will provide to you once you prepare as an evangelist. Or maybe you realize that your gift is all of a sudden, you've come to a point of maturity, okay, as you grow, that your gift is that you're a missionary, which is a combination of evangelist and somewhat of a pastor teacher, because as a missionary, what you do is you take the indigenous church principle and you evangelize, first of all, to establish, give individuals the opportunity to become believers. In other words, there's a pocket of positive volition, and God understands that, hey, there's a pocket of volition over here that's not being served, and sends you over there, okay, and you evangelize them. They then become believers, and now they need to continue to grow. Well, it's not your responsibility, okay, as a missionary to stay there and be the teacher. If you look at what the Apostle Paul and others did, is they found the person that was there, that's why I say it's an indigenous church principle, the person that was actually a part of that group of individuals that became believers. You find the one that recognizes that they have the gift of pastor teacher, and then you teach them. Okay, as a missionary, you provide everything necessary for them to become teachers themselves, become pastors themselves, and be trained so that they can then fulfill the teaching of that group of individuals. And that's what Ralph, for example, has done by setting up his various schools and seminaries there in the Philippines. He doesn't just go and be the only teacher of the churches that have formed as a result of his missionary activity. What he's done is he's taught Filipino men with the gift of pastor teacher to be pastor teachers for their own churches. Who better to have the proper examples that can be applied, where doctrine can be applied and made understood to individuals, right? I don't know anything about, the Filipino culture. So I'm not going to be able to give examples, for example, I'm going to be able to give doctrinal examples that would make an impact to them. But a Filipino pastor teacher would, that has the culture and everything. See, that's the idea of missionary. But anyway, I'm getting into the missionary function. The idea, though, is that your right job is not necessarily a job that you're going to do for the entire rest of your life. It's only that one job. As you grow, God understands that and gives you the opportunity for blessings for that growth. Okay? So the man must continue to be aware of God's blessing and aware of the growth potential. Okay, so that's all we're going to say about that. As Forrest Gump said, okay, we're done with right job. Okay. Point 5. So now we go out. This is a big point 5. No parents. Point 5. Identification of right man, right woman. So now we've set the stage for the fact that there is the concept of right man, right woman. And by now you understand that it exists, that there is a right man, there is a right woman for every right man, and vice versa. And you understand that it's a concept for not only believers, but for unbelievers as well. It's a form of limited happiness that the unbeliever can have. You understand that there's a right job, okay, for the man, and that the woman's job, primary job, is to function to take care of the man, to satisfy, to support the man, and as a result, she herself is fulfilled. So it's a fantastic opportunity. That's what they call symbiotic, right? She satisfies him, and as a result, she in turn is satisfied herself. Okay. So we have that. So now the next question is, okay, I get it. There's a concept. Now, what do I do about it? How do I find my right man? Or, as a right man, how do you identify your right woman? So that's point 5. Identification of right man, right woman. Subpoint A. From what the truth of the Word of God reveals, about the existence and provision of a right woman for a right man, we can glean information related to the mechanics of finding or identifying the individual's, quote, right counterpart, period, end quote. So we see that Isha was provided to Adam, but Adam first had to recognize her, right? Well, we're going to learn how that is done in our day and age, quote unquote, and in after the fall, when you had all of a sudden procreation, and now you had all kinds of men and women existing, okay? How do you identify the right one? Subpoint B. First of all, we should look at the general mechanics of this, quote, selection process, end quote. Related to our time. In this regard, there are three stages related to this process, colon. First is dating. Semicolon. Second is engagement. Semicolon. And third is divorce. No, is marriage. And third is marriage. Period. And those are the three stages that are supposed to occur, right? What we're talking about, again, is strategy. And what happens today is these steps are skipped. And when these steps are skipped, then you end up with the society that we have today, where you have the concept of starter marriages. Oh, well, this is just my first marriage, we're just trying it out. And then, we may end up going our separate ways, but that's okay. At least, we kind of have this first experience, and I'll go find someone else, and he'll go find someone else, and, off we go. And then I'll do it for real. Okay? That's ridiculous. Or we're just going to live together. See, there's no, in those stages, I don't have any living together, right? We're just going to live together, so that we can see if it works first. Living together is in no way related to being married. There is, when people say, what's so important about a piece of paper? It's not the paper, it's what it represents. It's the commitment. See, when you are just living together, you always have in the back of your mind that there's a way out, right? All I got to do is take my toothbrush and go find another home, right? That doesn't happen when you're married. So when you're going to make that commitment, you look a little bit closer, right? It's like the idea of being either, being committed or being involved, right? And there's the old joke about, about breakfast, Okay, when it comes to breakfast, when you're having bacon and eggs, okay, the chicken is involved, but the pig's committed. Okay, there's a big difference. Okay, and so there's no living together. Okay, anyway, so we have dating, engagement, and marriage. Subpoint 1, dating, colon. Subpoint little a. The primary reason for dating should not be, quote, to have a good time, end quote. Comma, should say comma, end quote. Although there is certainly nothing wrong with dating being an enjoyable experience, comma. Okay, so the reason for, that's elliptical. So the primary reason for dating should not be to have a good time, nor to provide an opportunity for the young man or the young woman to become sexually active, comma, nor to demonstrate that the individual is extremely, quote, popular, end quote. So it used to be in high school, probably now in junior high and grade school. The way things are going, that it used to be that the girl was measured with her popularity, okay, by the different individuals she was dating, right? Oh, gee, she dates a lot of guys, she's really popular, right? Or he dates a lot of girls, he's really popular. Ooh, what a hunk. He's the high school, the classic high school quarterback, and he dates a lot of girls. Ooh, I want to be one of those girls. No, you don't. That's not the process for. That's not the reason for dating. Okay. Excuse me. Okay. Become popular, comma, nor because the individual simply has quote, nothing better to do, period, end quote. Gee, I'm so bored. Oh, me too. Want to go out? Sure. No, find a hobby. Okay. Read a book. Build a model. Sew a skirt. Do whatever. Right? Don't go out just because you're bored. Okay. That's not the purpose for dating. You have to understand why these processes came about. Okay. Subpoint little b. The concept of dating should be the initial stage in the individual's search for right man or right woman. In other words, I was looking, hey, here's someone that, that is in my periphery. Potentially, this is someone God provided for me. Okay, let's see if I can identify if that's really the case. Okay, Did God present this woman for me as my right woman? Right? Or if you're from the woman's standpoint, hey, here's a guy, is he the right man? Okay? So the individual search for right man or right woman. Continue the point. Here's where the basic determination is made whether or not a particular individual is a possible candidate for being one's, quote, right counterpart, period, end quote. So this is where, since this is the first process, a good example is, for example, how you apply it is if you're a young lady and a young man comes and asks you out and you know that he's not a believer, what's your answer? No, I'm sorry, I can't go out. The idea is no, because unbeliever and believer are not going to be paired. Right? An unbeliever is never supposed to marry a believer, or vice versa. A believer is never supposed to marry an unbeliever. So if this is the initial identification process and the individual is an unbeliever, the idea is no. Not until now. That doesn't mean, never, right? The timing may be off. He says, oh. And now that's his impetus, for example, to say, well, tell me a little bit about Christ. You get an opportunity to evangelize. Then he becomes a believer, okay? And then you let him grow a little bit, and then try again. It may work that way, but the idea, as long as he's an unbeliever, or as long as she's an unbeliever and he's a believer, the idea is no. Okay? So that's an example, okay? Another example is if a girl comes up to another girl and says, hey, you want to go out? The idea is no. Okay? Because we're talking about right man, right woman. Okay? And so, and you chuckle. That happened, it's happening, right? I mean, we have marriages that are, same-sex marriages. Obviously, the idea is no. Okay, subpoint B. The concept of dating, I gave you that, okay? Subpoint C, little c. The individual should never date more than one person at a time. Semicolon. The bomb sonar went off, huh? The individual should never date more than one person at a time. Since this is a opportunity where you're trying to identify your potential right man, right woman, why would you be dating more than one person at a time? It's not a comparison. Okay? It isn't like, oh, shall I pick A or shall I pick B? Which is better, this or this, right? Like the optometrist. It's not that. The idea is she either is or she isn't. And you've got to devote your attention to her. Okay, if you're going to do this identification, or she's got to devote her attention to him. She can't sit there and string a bunch of guys along, and the guy can't play the field, as they used to say. The idea is it's one-on-one for the identification process. So the individual should never date more than one person at a time. And when something is discovered that disqualifies one individual, as a potential right counterpart, that individual should immediately, and you can underline immediately, be dropped. As a dating partner. And then the search can be continued. for another individual. So as I said, the idea of playing the field or running a string of boyfriends or girlfriends, you know, makes the identification process of a potential right counterpart extremely difficult and most often impossible. In other words, the idea is if you're trying to play A versus B, then you're not concentrating on either A or B, and you won't identify the right one. Because it's the whole package, not the comparison package. Oh, well, he has pretty eyes, you know, and he's more handsome than this one is, but this one's smarter than that one, and no, this has got a better build than that one, oh, but this one's got, you know, going to make more money, right? You know, what you're focusing when you're doing the A versus B, you're focusing on the wrong thing. It's one at a time. You're identifying one candidate. Something wrong going on here with my, oh, well, I'll fix it later. Okay. Subpoint little d. This brings up the obvious point. That dating, excuse me, that dating should not start until the individual is old enough and mature enough to recognize the fact that the person that they are dating is a potential candidate for right man or right woman. So this concept of trying to push together children in junior high, right? You know, with the idea of dating, okay, is stupid. Unless you expect your child at 12 or 13 to be married, okay, in which you probably don't live in this state, you live some other state, and then it's a cousin. No, the idea is, unless you expect that person, you know, to recognize the right man, right woman at 12 or 13 years old, right, which is not usually the case here, then dating is out of the question. It doesn't mean that they can't have friends, but the concept of dating where it's a one-on-one isn't supposed to happen until they're actually looking to identify a right man or a right woman. Because dating is not supposed to be just for fun or just because you're bored. It's an identification process. So, as parents, we weren't supposed to do that. And as parents that have kids now, okay, or will have kids, those of you that are having kids or going to have kids eventually, need to understand, you don't push them, okay, into the dating process until they're ready to identify a right man or right woman. This whole concept, like I said, of junior high or, you know, even high school. In fact, in society today, as immature as kids are, you know, they don't start dating until they're 30. Okay, because they, you know, they aren't mature enough until they're 30 to, you know, finally realize that, ooh, this is what a right man or right woman is supposed to be. Okay, so as you can tell, I'm tired of 20-somethings and the high school students trying to dictate my freedoms. Okay, and I'm not going to grant them any knowledge of being adults until they're older. Anyway, this brings up the obvious point that dating should not start until blah blah blah, potential candidate for right man or right woman. Period. The idea is going to make it ridiculously important here, or make a ridiculous point here, but the idea of dressing up 6- and 7-year-olds and sending them out on dates, dates is in quotes, is reprehensible. And parents who do this are begging for trouble, which they usually get, period. You know, cable used to have all these shows with all these little girls that were, you know, 5, 6, 7 years old, competing in beauty pageants, right? Where they wore makeup and false eyelashes and mascara and evening gowns. And, you know, I don't know whether they had a bathing suit contest or not, right? You know, they maybe drew the line there, okay? But they did all of these horrible things. Finally, society, I think, has gotten sick of that, and they don't have those anymore on cable so much. You know, no more of the Honey Boo Boos or whatever the name of that girl was, right? But you're asking for nothing more than trouble when you do that kind of thing. Oh, isn't it so cute? No, it's disgusting. When my kids were younger, they used to comment on that. You know, when we would go to the mall and stuff, you see these girls that are 10, 11, and 12, right? You know, and they're wearing clothes that you know, are barely acceptable for an 18 or 19-year-old young woman, right? And they're on 10 and 12-year-olds, or 7 and 8-year-olds. You know, wearing shorts that say pink on the back, right? And things like that. The term that he used to use, and you know, it's offensive, yes, but it actually hit the point, was prostitutes. That's what they look like. You're trying to hustle your 7-year-old. That's horrible, absolutely horrible. It has nothing to do with what we're talking about in terms of finding right man, right woman. And then you wonder why, you know, your kid turns out to be a louse. It's your fault. Okay. So, subpoint little e. The dating process is designed to get a basic knowledge of the individual's soul, colon, his or her background, comma, general character, comma, attitudes, comma, potential compatibility, comma. That doesn't mean sexual compatibility. That means compatibility to spend extended periods of time with the individual without wanting to kill him or her. Okay. Manners, comma, sensitivity, comma, etc. See, this is when you get to find out a little bit more about the individual. What's their background? What do they believe in? They may be a believer, right, as you are, but kind of what maturity and what do they believe in? Do they believe in, you know, you can hit the light subjects first, like, oh, I don't know, homosexuality, you know, all of those things, you know. No, but the idea is to understand their background, understand their likes and dislikes, the sensitivities. Even to the point of things like, what are their manners? What are their mannerisms? Right? I have likes and dislikes, right? And so do you. I tend to be, I know what mine are. I tend to be an English snob. Okay, it drives me nuts when people speak improperly. I know I do it once in a while, so I can't, complain too badly. But words like that, badly. When people don't use adverbs correctly, I think that drives me nuts, right? I can never think of spending an entire life with someone who every time they spoke, it just grated on me, right? Or talking about manners, someone that chews with their mouth open. I couldn't do that. I'm sorry. I couldn't do that. I don't care. So little things like that. See, that's what you find out in the dating process. You go out to dinner, you talk to each other, you listen to each other, okay, and you decide whether you can be compatible with this individual, and are they compatible with you? Okay, continue the point. It is, comma, and must continue to be, comma, so it is and must continue to be a, quote, non-touching relationship, period, end quote. This doesn't preclude holding hands or the proverbial goodnight kiss. But anything beyond that will simply cloud the issue and should be avoided. See, this is the mental and the limited emotional part. Okay, this is from the mental standpoint. Are we mentally compatible? And to some extent, are we emotionally compatible? But you don't want to get the glands into this. Okay, you don't want to get the juices flowing, so to speak. Okay, the idea is that it's supposed to be mental recognition first. Is this person even acceptable? Okay, subpoint F. This is the last subpoint on dating. Subpoint F. The proper function of the individual in the dating process includes one of the basic protections against malfunction in general, comma, which includes developing, quote, scar tissue of the soul, comma, end quote. Usually as a result of improper sexual activity, which makes identification of right man or right woman extremely difficult or even impossible, period. Proper function in dating helps to keep the individual, quote, pure, end quote. For his or her right counterpart. Which will tremendously enhance the potential of having potential of having a proper right man, right woman relationship. When the right counterpart is finally found and accepted, period. See, the whole idea is in dating that you're supposed to be identifying, and that means using your mind. Okay, when you try and use your body, the problem is that you're muddying the waters. You're making it absolutely more difficult and potentially even impossible to find a right man or right woman. In fact, we know from the standpoint of once sex happens, that is supposed to be your right man. Okay, whether you like it or not. It may not be your right man, but it's supposed to be your husband. Nobody but your husband and nobody but your wife are supposed to have sexual relationships with each other. And so you're destroying your opportunity. And so these girls will go out, or boys will go out, you know, young men, young women will go out and on the first or second date decide, okay, now's the time, right? And they escalate it to the point where they're having physical intimacy, and then they break up, and then they wonder why they can never find the right girl or the wrong guy or the right guy. We already found the wrong guy, the right woman or the right guy. It's because you've screwed yourself up, right? And the idea is too that when people talk about, oh, well, you know, what's the problem if I'm having all these different sexual relationships? I'm not hurting anybody. Yes, you are. You're hurting the person who's supposed to be that person's right mate. See, if it's not your right counterpart, and you haven't gone through the dating, engagement, and marriage process, and instead have decide to have sexual relationship with each other, okay, and then you break it off, well, you, from the standpoint of the male, okay, you as a male have ruined yourself for your right counterpart. Your right woman deserves you to be a virgin, just like she should be a virgin. And you've ruined that woman for some other man to whom she was supposed to have be the right counterpart. And so you've taken away some of the happiness of both of you. For what? For a moment of happiness that you think is happiness when in fact it isn't. Because maximum happiness comes with your right man or your right woman. And so you've overridden God's desire for you, okay, with your own desire. That once again is being encouraged by some chemicals in your body that should never have been boiling to that point to begin with. Okay, so dating is a non-touching, relationship, other than limited hand-holding and kissing, and that's it. Subpoint 2, engagement. So 2 with a single parent around it. Once the dating process has convinced both individuals that there is every chance they are right man and right woman, they then move to engagement, or move to the engagement. See, we've been dating for a while. It seems like we're compatible. I can't see anything wrong with you. You can't see anything wrong with me. We have similar beliefs. We have similar feelings. We like the same kinds of things. We have similar backgrounds. We could be compatible. Okay, so now you're amping it up, if you will, and you're certainly making it unique. You're making it exclusive. Okay, the idea is that you're now recognizing publicly that, hey, this could be my right man or this could be my right woman. And the man is going to be taking on the responsibility, right, of that. And so that's why he gives the engagement ring. The idea is that, hey, all you other guys out there, back off. Okay, she's done looking for a while, and we're going to see if we're going to go to the next step, which ultimately will be marriage. Okay, so subpoint B. This is a period. Yeah, 2 is engagement, and subpoint A was once the dating process. I'm sorry, did I not identify that as subpoint A? Okay, sorry. Subpoint A was the once the dating process has convinced both individuals, there's a chance that they're right man, right woman. That was subpoint A underneath 2. 2 is just the word engagement. Sorry. Subpoint A begins the once. Sorry about that. If you're writing with pen, you can go //A. I apologize. It looks fine to me. You know, I don't understand what's wrong with you guys. Why can't you read my mind? Okay. Subpoint B. This is a period that is designed as a more, quote, intense, end quote, relationship, comma. Note that the word is intense and the word is not intimate. Okay, this is still engagement. It still does not give you the permission to engage in sexual activity. Okay, this is a period that is designed as a more intense relationship where much more time is spent together. And each individual has the opportunity to see the other in situations where there is pressure and potentially suffering circumstances. And determine how he or she handles the normal pressures of life, period. See, so in dating, you have those limited contacts. You know, you maybe go out for dinner or you go out for a lunch or you go to the movies or maybe you just go for a walk in the park or whatever, right? You know, but they're fairly limited. Once you become engaged, the idea is that you get to spend a little bit more time with each other and with each other's families even, you know, potentially. And the idea is you get to see, okay, what are the next ring of circumstances, right? In other words, you start off with kind of, think of it in concentric circles. You start off in the dating process is just kind of, you know, he and she getting to kind of know each other with limited exposure. And in the old days, quote unquote, which wasn't that long ago, you had chaperones that went on the dates with you, right? So that you really didn't have that much time, and they kept it above board, shall we say, okay? And the idea was you just got the opportunity to see each other and limited where you're both on your best behavior, right? You want to make a really good impression on the girl, or she wants to make a really good impression on you. And then when you get engaged, you start spending a little bit more time together. You know, you go, like I say, you get to spend maybe time with his family or her family. or you just get to have a time where you're not all dressed up and going out someplace. You're just kind of hanging out, like they say, right? And the idea is you get to see what happens when this person is has the pressures of life put on them, when the job isn't going right, or when he's going to come pick you up and the tires on his car are flat, right? Or she can't do anything with her hair, the classic thing, right? he's come to pick her up, take her out or whatever, and she can't find anything to wear, or her hair isn't doing what she wants it to do, or ... right? You get to start seeing each other in a more day by day type of fashion, right? That's what I mean by the intense part of it. If you've ever seen the Quiet Man, right? That's the idea with John Wayne. He's going to date the girl, right? And the chaperone, he's got to go with the chaperone, and they're full-grown adults, right? And they still have to have this Irish chaperone, right? That's there the whole time. They have to sit side by side. They can't touch each other or anything. That's the dating process, right? Only that movie, they go from dating to marriage, which turns into her throwing stuff at him all the time. Anyway, subpoint C. This is the period where the individuals get a better understanding of each other, and where any, quote, hidden flaws, end quote, are supposed to be found. That would disqualify one or the other. Of the two individuals as, quote, the right counterpart, period, end quote. See, this is the time when you get to meet their friends. See, the guys that have known them for a lot longer, and they tell you all about them, right? And you get to find out, well, is this really still someone I want to be with, right? Are they that same person, that wild person, or are they a little bit different now, right? And that idea, you get to find those little hidden flaws and work out and say, hey, are these going to be disqualifiers or not, right? Are they functioning properly still? Okay, because now you're spending more time together. It's harder to keep up a facade. See, when you're dating, you can have that facade of being Mr. Perfect or being Miss Perfect, right? But now that you're engaged and you're spending a little bit more time with each other, it's harder to keep that facade going. And so pretty soon they will see you in your natural habitat, so to speak. Okay, and they will get to see the true colors. Okay, continue the point. This is also the period where all of the specifics related to marriage and spending the rest of their lives together should be discussed and basically agreed upon. See, this period, both the dating and the engagement, are the periods that get shortened when you have this quote-unquote love at first sight, right? And so people end up getting into relationships without going through these steps and without discussing these things. And so suddenly you find the woman who wants to have a passel of kids and the man doesn't want any, right? And oops, they end up getting married, and that marriage doesn't work because she's not fulfilled and he's not fulfilled because she's not fulfilled. right? She's always holding back and upset because she wants kids and he doesn't want any. Or vice versa. He wants a whole bunch of kids and she doesn't want any. Okay? And they didn't have the opportunity to talk about that. Or he's perfectly happy living in a hut in the middle of the desert and she wants to be in downtown New York. Okay? All, what was it, Green Acres. Yeah, no. He wants to be a farmer and she wants to be in Manhattan. Okay, it's not right. And you should have talked about that before you said I do. Right, and that's what the engagement is for. And should it be that their desires don't match, they call it off. See, people tend to think, gee, there's some kind of stigma associated with calling off an engagement. And somehow in our society, we've placed a huge stigma on calling off an engagement. But the idea is engagements are made to either be fulfilled or broken. The idea is you break it if it doesn't make sense. You should never feel pressured just because you've been engaged that now, oh, gee, it's not going to work out, but we got to get married because we're engaged and everybody thinks we're going to. To heck with everybody. It's you as right man and right woman. Is it your right man? Well, if you want to live in Manhattan and that's what's going to make you happy and you want to have a passel of kids and he doesn't want to have any kids and he wants to go live on a boat in an island in the middle of the Pacific with nothing but you and a bunch of dolphins around, okay, then you better break off the engagement because neither of you are going to be fulfilled. You know, he needs to find a mermaid, yeah. and you need to find a stockbroker or whatever. Right? Okay, but the idea is, you know, you don't go through with an engagement just because you're engaged. You stop the engagement when you find out there's not a right man, right woman relationship there. That's the whole point of it. But kids aren't being taught that. Young men and young women aren't being taught that. They're just being taught that, oh, okay, for, you know, we date a little bit, then we get engaged, then we get married. And there's a stigma associated with engagement, so I can't break it off. Break it off. Here's your ring back. See, it's better to break off the engagement than to try and have a divorce, because biblically, once you say I do, you did. And there's only certain qualifications that allow you to have a divorce with the right of remarriage. Okay? So, this is also the period where all the specifics related to marriage and spending the rest of their lives together should be discussed and basically agreed upon. Subpoint D is actually, we're going to have to pick it up because I'm yammering so much, it's already 11:30. So subpoint D is where we will pick it up next week. Isn't this fun? Learning either what you should have done or what hopefully you are doing, one of the two. It's either a, oops, I could have had a V8, or it's a, woo, I'm going to be able to have something wonderful. Yeah. So, okay, if you'll stand, we'll go ahead and end the class.